Another one of these types of photos, for those who have seen the other one, the other photo like this was on a canvas, like a standout. This one is actually in a frame, like a photo. So I think it's very intriguing that whoever it is that is the artist, y'all, there's a very, very busy highway. You may as well just pretend like I'm in the car, okay? Pretend like I'm in my car because I've got to leave that window open a little bit for some air, okay? A little air circulation. I've got to leave the window open a little bit. So you're going to hear the occasional siren. Today it's been kind of busy. You're going to hear the occasional, that's a big rig. You're going to hear the occasional truck because where I'm located is, there's a lot of industrial areas because as yours truly once was a truck driver, I used to deliver to Laredo, Texas and pick up in Laredo, Texas. So I'm very familiar with that. So you're going to hear a little bit of that in the background from time to time. And we're taking another break from let's just say, chemicals in the makeup. Okay, so while those notifications go out, I want to go ahead and do our usual check here. We're going to talk about how the Matrix loves its deception. I kid you not. And more, of course. And I mean, it does. The narcissistic matrix out here, it loves its deception because, well, why not? Right? Why not? Because it's the deception that keeps people buying on impulse, and it keeps the devil in people's finances unnecessarily. And I'm not going to say that the devil has a necessity to be in our finances, but let's face it, okay? We got to pay bills, right? Alrighty then. Credit card bills, car insurance that we're forced to have if we want to drive, car insurance that we're forced to have to get a driver license, right, that we're forced to get in order to drive a car. So the game of narcissism. So there's just some things out here that we're not able to, get out from under the bondage unless we want to give up that privilege. Remember, driving is not a right. Driving is a privilege. So if you want that privilege, then you've got to get car insurance, a driver license, and then there you go. Okay, now, real quick, as always, I got to. So if you want that privilege, there you go. All right, now I've got the chat up to keep up with y'all. Okay, but I am Michelle Dickey, your host for CHA's Truth Seeker podcast on the YouTube channel, Narcissism and Cognitive Dissonance, where trauma healing and spiritual growth are front and center while combating radio frequencies for healthier living. So again, real quick, for those of you just now coming on in, and then those of you catching it on the replay, I do have the window cracked just a little bit, so you're going to hear the occasional siren, you're going to hear the occasional big rig, big truck, like I used to drive. So, and it sounds like they're using their Jake brake. And for those who don't know what the Jake brake is, okay, the Jake brake on a big rig is an extra brake, if you will, for if we're going downhill and we've got a heavy load and that load is pushing us a little faster down the hill than we want to go. That's when we turn the Jake brake on it, and it helps. It's an additional braking system, and it's called the Jake brake. I don't know why. If y'all know why, you can put it in the comments. But anyhow, usually you'll see signs. I know here in the United States, you'll see signs like in a little town where it's flat, and it'll say no Jake brake, no engine brake, please, or something like that. No Jake braking, because it is rather loud. So I hear a lot of it. I guess there's no law against them using their Jake brake right here on US 83. But okay then. But the Matrix loved its deception because let's think about it, right? We've learned, and those of you who are just now learning, we live in a fallen Babylonian narcissistic matrix, the evil out here, and we're starting to uncover the 80% deception and then the 20% legit. So for a reminder, for anybody who wants to know, the 20% legit, you got to look, okay? You got to look, well, you got to think babies, okay? You got to think babies, because even though there are some things that are not necessarily all that great to feed the babies, but if you look at baby food, the all natural, and you look at a lot of the baby thing, baby shampoos and baby soaps and stuff, you're going to find that there's not as many chemicals in those as there are in like adult stuff. Go figure, right? Okay. So you look there, and then also what I have learned is that as part of the 20% legit, is your stuff like Prilosec and heartburn remedy. Those are legit, and they have to be. Y'all got to remember something. That 20% legit, okay, stuff that actually works, stuff that does what it is intended to do, it has to, because that's how the Matrix and the devil and narcissists use deception to trick you into thinking that everything else like it will work also. What I have learned as part of the 80% deception out here in the Matrix is a lot of your pain relieving creams and stuff. Nope. They do the complete opposite. They actually make it worse. That's why we are purging the word pain from our vocabulary, because chosen one, it's just a discomfort, right? Yeah, well, on average, okay? On average. This is why we learn to move slowly, okay? Slow it down a little bit. Take your time. You ain't got to rush. That's when accidents happen, is when you try to get ahead of God, when you try to rush through, when you try to rush things. You know, how many times have we turned a corner too fast and whacked our elbow? Okay, that's the kind of stuff we stop doing. Well, yo, when you learn that radio frequency, okay, is attracted to salt trapped in the body, what do you think a bruise is? Oh, yeah, what do you think a bruise is? Right, it's because, I mean, well, we know, for those who have done this, you get a little paper cut, and if it bleeds a little bit, what'd you do? Yeah, took your tongue to it. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but boy, I was like, man, I said, wow, I said, that blood is salty. That's a lot of salt in that blood. So you wonder about that. Well, think about the bruise then, right? A bruise. Okay, well, it's going to be, right, it's going to be a coagulation, if you will, of blood pulling together in that spot that got whacked. And so it's going to what? Oh, gosh, can you imagine the amount of salt that's in where that bruise is? See, that's what happened to yours truly. That's what the Jezebel case study did. She put bruises just about everywhere in this body. Yes, she did. Because she knew that those bruises would serve as a magnet for radio frequency to try and cook this body from the inside out. That's what's happening. So we're not a dummy, y'all. Once we started noticing the bruises and things like that, I was like, yo, be not deceived. God is not mocked. And so when you understand that, you understand better why the Matrix loved its deception with inconsistencies, because it is set up for people to have accidents, to injure themselves, that self-sabotage. That's why you go from one hotel to another and you have toilet seat for toddlers. Man, I got to go all the way down that one, but sheesh, okay. And then you got the next hotel, right, the beds are the same way. I've noticed a difference in heights in the beds. And then bathroom counter, the heights, all different. All different. It's inconsistent. Because if you stay in one area long enough, you get used to that, right? You get used to the height of that, and the height of this, and the height of that. Then you go to another place, and it's completely different. Well, accidents can happen if you're not paying attention. This is why we got to have that heightened awareness. And so that part of the deception is with the inconsistency, to deceive people. Because if you're running on adrenaline and your ANS, your autonomic nervous system, is always numb, Well, then, yeah, we're going to do exactly that. We're going to turn that corner too fast and whack that elbow, and we're going to get a bruise. That's what the devil wants. The matrix wants to deceive you to self-sabotaging and getting that bruise that way. And when you go to the store and the LED lights and all that radio frequency, if your ANS is numb, though, you know there's a bruise there. You can kind of feel it. It aches a little bit, but you're like, okay, well, it's a bruise. It'll heal. And it does. But before it fully heals, it gets zapped a few times by that radio frequency. Ooh. Right? Okay. So, because all of that slows down your circulation. And you need circulation for that bruise to heal. Of course. So anyway, for anything to heal, you need circulation. You need oxygen. So that's part of the deception that this matrix just loved. I mean, it loved to keep people deceived. You know how God said that they're going to be the deceived doing the deceiving? Bingo. That's what we're up against. That's what we are witnessing. That is what we are starting to notice more of. Not just with the inconsistencies, but wow, with the things that the devil wants to keep from us as far as less expensive ways to live and how to get around the resistance of inflation. Because we know that whenever that happens, as part of the deception from the matrix, is that eventually the prices come back down. It just depends on who's playing leader of the dog and pony show on the world stage. Okay? It's going to fluctuate. It's going to go up. It's part of the manipulation. It's just part of keeping people deceived and sitting on the edge of their seat waiting for another biblical Jesus to come back. No, it's us, y'all. Chosen one. It is us. We are the physical return. Okay? We are the physical return. We are the second resurrection. Our physical body. As Christ walks through us. Galatians 2 verse 20. So when you realize that and you rest in Christ and let God show you all the deceptions of the matrix. And we're still just getting started with that. I have to tell you, it's, wow. It's like, I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, hold on. I can see that. That's what it says. But let me pull back that layer. That's where I'm at in the spiritual awakening. I'm like, let me pull back that layer just a little bit more. I said, we know the matrix is full of lies and deception. After all, lies are deceitful. So there's another part of the deception that the matrix loves. And lies are easier to believe. That's why God tells us that, yeah, they are turned over to strong delusion so that they will continue to believe the lies. And so the truths, spiritual truths, will not resonate with them. See, God is very strategic. Y'all got to remember that. And so as God continues, okay, to show us more of what the devil was trying to hide in plain sight, we continue to bring it to you all. Not just the red flags of narcissism and narcissists, but other tips and things for combating that radio frequency for healthier living. And then also things like this. So we stop wasting money on products that don't do what they claim to do as part of the 80% deception out here. Because yours truly, I've tried. I did. I said, wait a minute. I said, I get this roll-on. It's supposedly, it's got some lidocaine in it. I said, let me try this. I have a theory. Sure enough, because I started learning about how the matrix, everything is opposite. Like a lot of stuff, all part of the 80% deception, everything that's a part of that does the complete opposite of what it claims to do. So that roll-on pain reliever with lidocaine, I put it on the spot where I had a little bit of discomfort. I'm not in pain or anything, but I wanted to try something. So I put it on there, and sure enough, I was just like, let's see what happens. I had not convinced myself one way or the other yet. Because I know I used to use that stuff before I became aware of the 80% deception. And I said, okay. So I roll it on the spot. And about 15 minutes later, all of a sudden, it felt worse. I said, wait a minute. Oh my gosh. That was my theory, that it could possibly make it worse instead of actually ease the pain. And that's exactly what it did. It made it worse. Don't ask me how, but it did. And so I said, okay. It was only a few bucks, no big deal, but we'll never buy that again. It went in the trash. And I said, I got the proof I need. That's part of the 80% deception. And so I remember there was a comedian. His name was George Carlin. And I know he talked about some of this stuff. How the world sells us a bunch of stuff we really don't need. Ha ha, he's right about that. He was right about that. That's why we got to have that discernment too. The Matrix sells us a whole lot of stuff that we don't need. And that's one of them as part of the 80% deception. Because it wants you dependent on man and dependent on all things external instead of being dependent on God, who's on the inside, the spirit on the inside. So when you become dependent on God, then you start to see the 80% deception of the Matrix. And it loves it because it makes it money. You see, the Matrix and narcissists have the love of money, the root of all evil. That's what God tells us. God does not say we can't have money. In fact, God's chosen ones are supposed to have. Yes. God's chosen ones were never, ever, ever meant to know, because we're not of this world. You remember when Jesus said he's not of this world? Okay, well, neither are we. And so God said, no. He said, we just got to work while we wait. We got to work. We got to bear that fruit. We got to get out here. We got to spread the gospel. We got to share these truths. Got to bring the lies to light so that you all can become aware, heightened awareness. Because that 80% deception, I mean, it's going to sell you all kinds of stuff. I mean, I know, hey, yours truly, I fell for it too before God awakened. Yeah, before God awakened me. And so there's other fellow warriors that we've talked to, and y'all know what I'm talking about. Where we used to do all that same stuff. We were part of the Matrix in that way. Like, oh man, okay, so if I'm feeling this kind of discomfort, oh shoot, that means I got to go to the store and I got to get this over-the-counter thingy. Oh, I need to go get this over-the-counter thing. Oh my gosh, and then so over time, every time we would experience that, we would go and get, not anymore. Oh, no. Now that I know it's excess salt and radio frequency that causes the majority of the symptoms we experience, I'm not buying them. No, I did. I bought some. I take this back. I wanted to test another theory I had. And as my eyes, okay, because as my muscle mass returns, okay, as we are endurance training and we are detoxing, and as my muscle mass returns, oxygen, it's going to take a little while, but these things will heal. But I know at the corner of my eye, oh yeah, I had somebody try to tell me it was a virus that don't exist. Yeah, I'm not stupid. I said, oh really? Because I told him, I said, no, I learned a long time ago. I said, that's just a lack of oxygen getting there right now. It'll heal. And he was like, no. I'm like, yeah, okay, you just told on yourself. So, knowing that, I was like, okay, so it's just going to take a little while. But I thought, you know what, it would be nice if I could, see if, I bought a little bottle of Clear Eyes. I used to use that. Yeah, and guess what? It did not work. It did not work. It did not get rid of any of the redness in the eye. I said, I wonder why it's not working now. But before, because I thought it worked. That's why. Think about that part of the deception right there. How many products out here have we used before and we thought they worked? They worked because we thought they worked. Thoughts are spiritual power, right? We were convinced, right? Okay, we were convinced. And so I went to test the theory. I said, well, let me go get this. Let's see if it still works like I thought it did. And when it did not clear up the eye, I said, that's it. That's it. Thoughts. Because we actually believed that it worked. You see, you have to believe. So I was like, I wonder how many other products out here don't do anything at all. We just don't know that yet. I'm curious, because that's what I'm finding. I'm finding out that there's a lot of product that we bought that don't do anything. And then, which is also part of the deception. And then a lot of the products that do the opposite of what they claim. So yeah, I have one product that I tested the theory on, didn't do anything at all. It didn't do the opposite. It didn't make the eye worse. It didn't make nothing worse. It just didn't do anything. Put it in there and blah. It was like a placebo. It was a placebo. So, and then I tried that pain reliever with lidocaine in it, and it did the opposite. It made the discomfort worse. So that's all part of the 80% deception of the matrix. So it makes me think about other things. What else? What else are we going to uncover, right? And a good one, I talk a lot more about this on the Patreon channel too, about a lot of food that we've been lied to about. It doesn't have to go in the fridge after you open it. Especially if it's vinegar based. Now, if it's got a lot of salt, you're just going to need to let it air out a little bit, because the excess salt will evaporate. But I'm finding out that if you put it in and out of the fridge all the time, that's what makes it go bad quicker. Because just like our body, our ANS, our autonomic nervous system, does not like going from extreme heat to extreme cold. Well, the food don't either. And so I'm just now learning more about that. What we've been lied to about since birth. So the truth is, there's a lot of things that you don't have to put in the fridge after opening it. For example, mustard. Because I started paying attention, I'm going to bring it back. I heard the Holy Spirit said bring it back, because this is part of the 80% deception of the matrix. And it loves its deception. But see, you got to start paying attention to this stuff. Like soy sauce. You go to a Chinese restaurant, or any restaurant, where they've got the ketchup mustard still stays sitting on the table overnight. It does not go in the fridge. Same thing with the soy sauce at Chinese restaurants. I've noticed that. I was like, I said, that doesn't go in the fridge after being open. And they refill the bottle with the bigger bottle that does not go in the fridge. I said, that's interesting. Then you look at the vinegar base side of it. And then, of course, salt. And I said, my goodness. So it'll last a lot longer if you're not putting it in and out of the refrigerator. But if you put it in the refrigerator, it's going to collect that moisture, that condensation, that cold. That cold keeps the salt molecules small, which keeps the salt content longer, which the excess salt in certain things is what will cause it to go bad quicker. Another way to trick us into buying more than necessary. Oh, wow, so that went bad. We got to throw it out now. We go buy another one before we needed to. Yeah, part of the 80% deception right there. And so we're still uncovering things about that and learning to pay closer attention to things. And I'm going to tell y'all, we're seeing some weird stuff. Okay, some weird stuff. Well, I mean, when I say weird, it's just so out of the norm that it's not something that you expect to see when you go up the stairs in a hotel and you open up the door to the floor that you're on, headed to your room, and you never mind. I'm still processing that. I'll bring it to y'all later. Yeah, the door open and then dude's sitting there with a bunch of toys all over the floor, and he looked like an overgrown, yeah, definitely a narcissist. And I was like, wow, did you just throw a temper tantrum? That's what my thought was. But it was very strange. But then again, not surprising when you're dealing with narcissists in the matrix. And I said, gosh, that's not something you see every day now, is it? Oh boy. We don't excuse that stuff. That's what I'm saying. I know before I wouldn't even think anything of it. Now I'm like, yo. And of course they said hello and I didn't say nothing. I was like, I just kept it moving. But part of the 80% deception, y'all, in the matrix, is just there's a lot. I mean, 80% is a pretty good percentage when you start thinking about all of the lies we've been told and we start uncovering those. And how do we do that? Again, 1 Peter 5 verse 8. We stay sober and vigilant. We pay attention. We don't ignore weird stuff like that. We don't ignore it. We're like, okay, we saw it. No more cognitive dissonance in action here. Because, we saw what we saw. And we also know about the subliminal messaging, trying to trick us into believing that a lot of this stuff. That's what I'm saying. So if you think about 80% deception, what we've uncovered is you've got a product over here that is supposed to numb or take away the pain, but it actually does the opposite. Like in the Matrix, a lot of things are opposite of what they actually are. And so you learn that, okay, oh, wow, okay, not going to buy that anymore. And then you also find out about other products, like I talked about, that you use and it doesn't do anything. Well, it did before because you used to believe it did. Now you're like, hold on a minute. And so now when you look at that scenario, can we say that 40% of that 80, half and half? You got 40% of stuff out here that they're selling us that doesn't do squat. It's just a placebo. And then the other 40% over here does the exact opposite of what it claims to do. That makes sense to me. That makes a lot of sense to me. Like, okay, that's what I'm finding. So now we got to be able to discern between the two. And then you have 20% legit. That's it. I know it's small, but there's a lot out here that is considered 20% legit. And so we learn to pay attention. And so like I said earlier, that part of the 20% legit is going to be things that have to work. And then also things for babies. Because the devil needs babies to make it to age 3. Because it's age 3 when your autonomic nervous system is able to become manipulated. That's when our ANS starts getting manipulated, at age 3. Because that's when, as a child, as a toddler, that's when we become aware of, hey, wait a minute, we're here. What is all this? Because the first 2 years of a baby's life, I mean, they don't even know they're here. They don't have any awareness. So, y'all got to remember, the devil targets kids. Heavy. Get them trauma bonded to the world. All of us trauma bonded to the world through the manipulation of our autonomic nervous system first, and then trauma bonded to a narcissist. That's how it works. But we don't know. We don't know anything except what the Matrix was teaching us about trauma and abuse. And so that's also part of the 80% deception of the Matrix. And it loves that. It loves the fact that there's a lot of people out here who still think that abuse is only domestic violence, meaning violent. Well, not all abuse is. We now know that. You have emotional and psychological and spiritual. Don't forget about that. And then you also have physical. But not all narcissists are physical abusers. That's what really threw a lot of us for a loop. Because of the deception of the Matrix teaching us that the only form of abuse was domestic violence. Now, glory be to God, I have been enlightened that there are some jurisdictions here in the United States who are starting to recognize narcissistic abuse. I don't know how that's going to play out in like the court system, criminal justice system, and things like that. But I do know that we did discuss this in another live with fellow warriors who are also uncovering the, they call them statutes of the jurisdiction they live in. And when you look it up, the codes and things, the description of the abusive behaviors fits right in line with narcissistic abuse and narcissism. It's just that's not what they call it. So it is recognized, it's just not called that on the books yet. But we were led to believe our whole life that, and that's deliberate, y'all. The devil don't want us to know about his narcissist, right? Okay, well then the Matrix is going to lie to us and tell us that the only kind of abuse is domestic violence. And so that's what we were led to believe. Just like we were lied to, as part of the deception, we were told that the only bad guys out here in the world were criminals. The ones that, are doing actual law breaking. We now know that narcissists, okay, yeah, yeah, and the many different flavors of them. Let's not forget that. And, the more we pay attention out here to the way the Matrix uses narcissism for marketing, that's part of the 80% deception. And the narcissism side of marketing is bait and switch, which is why we ended up buying a lot of products that we thought worked that don't really work, and then a lot of products that actually do the opposite of what they claim to be doing. Because if you're why do you want to numb that discomfort in the first place, right? Don't you want to know it's there? So the best thing to do, well, yeah, the best thing, because the discomfort just means that you have an air pocket trapped there and it's too hot. So it just needs to be cooled off. Ice pack, the best tip, cool it off. Yes, thank you, Shannon. I appreciate that. I thank you. And that's why I tell people that discomfort, but that 80% deception with the game of narcissism and the Matrix, it's going to sell you a bunch of stuff that is not natural. God intended for us to find natural ways, and the most natural way to alleviate any kind of discomfort is ice packing. Tried and true, which means you got an air pocket there. That's why you have the discomfort in the first place. So, that being said, we stopped buying things that they lied to us about. Okay, remember how narcissists, we find out that they mean the opposite of what they say in a lot of ways. We know there's a little bit of in the beginning they're telling on themselves, but we don't know that yet because we're so smitten with the love bombing. But later on we realized, hold on a second, they were actually telling the truth when they were testing to see how aware we were of them, or if we were even aware of them, with the statements like, if you knew who I really was, then you would leave me, or you wouldn't be with me, stuff like that. We realized they were telling the truth about that. But the rest of the time, it's all a lie. They mean the opposite of what they say. So when they told us that they loved us, it meant they really hated us, or they feared us. So it makes sense now that the narcissistic Matrix also, the narcissistic Matrix also does the same thing with products doing the opposite of what they claim it will do. And then you have, I split it up between 80%, you have 40% that the products will do nothing. They're just a placebo, but you don't know that. As long as you've been tricked into believing. Remember, Jesus says all we have to do is believe, right? So the devil knows that. And so that's why he uses the cognitive dissonance as a weapon of deception. Because he knows with cognitive dissonance, aka confusion, if we don't know anything else yet, that we will be easily convinced, because we're more gullible, that, because we don't realize that the pain we're experiencing, or better yet, as we're purging that from our vocabulary, the discomfort is simply lack of circulation and an air pocket that needs to be released and a little ice packing. Cool off the body on the inside. Got too much salt there. So once we start to learn that, but before we did, we go and we buy all this stuff because the narcissistic matrix convinced us that it worked. And so because all those ads, right? All those ads out there that told us, yeah, this is the #1 bestseller. This works for this and this works for that. So we're like, oh, okay, so we get it and it works because we already believe that it does before we even try it or before we even use it. And so now we're learning the truth about that 80% deception. And we're going to continue because this is just the start. I'm telling you, I know I've said that a lot, but it is. It's like, because there's so much to unpack. Purging the subconscious as we are being transformed by the renewing of our minds. And we think about these things, and I'm like, so how many items did I purchase throughout my life unnecessarily that really don't do anything, or that I really just don't need? Man, a lot. That's what I found out, is a lot. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Because we know that, hell is associated with heat. And the devil is obsessed with its heat. But more so your body on the inside. Because to keep that heat as high as possible on the inside of your body, to hopefully cause ailments that might make you dependent on man rather than stay dependent on God. And understand Philippians 4 verse 13, that we can do all through Christ who strengthens us. And that spiritual strength. I'm going to tell y'all, some of y'all need this reminder. Spiritual strength is a lot stronger than physical strength. Understand that. When you understand that, then you understand the strength from Christ. Because everything starts in the spiritual first. So your physical strength, okay, like yours surely, I'm, right, physically able to lift 2 of my toes. Okay? They're not too heavy, but I'm able to lift 2 of them and carry them a short distance. Okay? That's the physical strength, but it started with the thought of I can do all through Christ who strengthens me. It's spiritual first. So now we're going to talk about and more. All right? So when you go and you think something, this is what it looks like. Because the matrix wants to keep you deceived of how strong you really are. Chosen one, the spiritual strength is stronger than physical strength because your thoughts are the spiritual power. So as I am unloading my car, I go and I grab one toe. I grab the other one. I stack them on top of each other. And I already told myself I can carry both of those into the hotel room. And sure enough, I pick them up, no problem. Because I already believed. See, Jesus said all you have to do is believe. And knowing that you have the strength through Christ to do exactly that. Now, does it have anything to do with protein powder, creatine, and some weightlifting? Sure. But that's the biological side for muscle repair. But the actual activity of doing it starts in the spiritual. That spiritual strength is much stronger than the physical strength. And that's what it looks like. And so understanding that answers a lot of whys and hows. How did I do that? How was I able to lift that? Because you knew you could. You believed that you could. And Christ, that spiritual strength is stronger than the physical strength. And never forget that. Again, spiritual strength is stronger than physical strength because that in the spiritual In God's reality, everything starts in the spiritual first, with your thoughts. Your subconscious mind. So, that being said, it gets easier to get around the resistance caused by the deception. Think about that. A lot of that deception will cause a lot of resistance. When you find out that product does the opposite of what it's supposed to do, or this other one doesn't do anything at all. Now what? Now your mind is consumed with, how am I going to get rid of this discomfort? Again, ice pack. It's that simple. Ice pack it and keep it moving. Don't focus on it. This is the other thing that we learn to not do, okay? Because you don't want to overload your mind with nothing but thoughts about that discomfort. Because when you do that, it will seem worse. Because you're so focused on it. Remember, what you think about the most, you attract more of. That's why if you're all negative and you're putting out all that negative stuff, that's what you're going to attract more of. But if you're positive and you're uplifting, you're going to attract more of that. Living life in peace, I'm going to tell you. Tried and true. Because I don't go out here. Chosen ones, we don't go out here starting no ruckus or anything like that. We mind our own business. Chosen ones, we stay in our own lane. We ain't bothering nobody. We just want to be left alone. Leave us alone to do what God has called us to do. And for those who haven't heard it yet, I'm going to remind y'all that, the devil's time has run out. Because we're paying attention to everything. We are questioning everything that we've been taught by the Matrix and other narcissists. Because we realize that we've been taught wrong about a lot of things. Now, not your basic stuff, though, okay? 1 + 1 does equal 2. I know, it depends on who you're talking to, right? Anyway, God is not the author of confusion. So, stuff like that. But I'm talking about overall, in general, and things that we buy and how. Like, a great example I have that I share on the Patreon membership channel. Y'all listen. We do not have to cook chili on the stovetop like all day long, or in a crock pot all day long. It ain't gotta sit in there all day long to be good. Yours truly figured it out. I said, you know what? I was like, and I ain't the only one. I am not the only one. I know some of y'all figured this out too. How we were taught that you gotta have all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, how about a little garlic powder, onion? If I have bell pepper, okay, fine. But if I don't need it. I got onion, I got the beef, I got some kidney beans, I got some black beans. Okay, I can use both of those. Right? I got chili powder and I got garlic powder. Okay, real simple. I don't have to have bell pepper. If I want one, I can go get it. But if I've got everything, that's all I'm gonna put in it. Real simple. And so I cook it all up, cook that meat, get that chili powder in there, the garlic powder in there with the onion, I get the no salt added tomato sauce. That's right, no salt added. Get all that cooked up, add that tomato sauce, add the bean, a little more chili powder. Yours truly, I like that chili taste. And chili is good for circulation. So I put that chili in there and I get it to my liking of the amount of chili, the amount of heat, if you will. I don't think chili powder is really hot. It just depends on how much you put in it. But I put a decent amount to where it's like just enough, to where you can tell it there. And so I let it all simmer. Well, once all of it's cooked, I let it simmer. Okay? And let it simmer for, half hour or so. I turn the burner off, unplug the little stovetop thingy, unplug it, let it cool down, because it's still cooking. It's still hot enough. It's still cooking. But it ain't got to be in no crock pot all day long. Take me about an hour to make a decent batch of chili. I said, man, we've been lied to about a lot of stuff. Same thing with spaghetti sauce. Yeah, I figured it out. You don't even have to, seriously, If you're going to use spaghetti sauce, I make mine no salt added tomato sauce. I put that in the container, a little bit of apple cider vinegar, put my Italian seasonings in there and some garlic powder, stir it up, and that's that. I don't have to put it on the stove, be cooking it or nothing. It tastes just like spaghetti sauce to me. Real simple. See, God is a simple God. That matrix out here, as part of its deception that it loved, wants to complicate things that aren't complicated, because it wants to trick people into putting all this unnecessary chemicals and things in their foods. And excess salt. Ding, 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 ding. So that radio frequency, right, keep people deceived. And I'm telling y'all, that's a big part of what is going on out here. Is that it's not just the fever-induced state that a lot of people continue to live in, but it's a salt high. See, I've got a master's degree in forensic toxicology, so I know all about metal toxicity. And I'm not alone. You don't have to have a degree to know all about it, but there's my credential. And so when I learn more about radio frequency poisoning, how the symptoms are just like metal toxicity symptoms, come on now, that's not a coincidence. Not a coincidence. And so a lot of people running around out here without knowing that they're experiencing a salt high. It's a euphoric type of feeling. Lethargy, if you will. That's from all the excess salt. So there you go. All right, you all, that's and more. And that last little bit of info is as part of our movement combating radio frequencies for healthier living. And so I see that we've got a few of you who are going to catch this on the replay, and that's great. I know a lot of y'all are going to catch it on the replay. I highly encourage y'all to do so. Great information, lots of facts about the deception. So we got to learn about these so that we don't continue to be deceived over and over again. This is our responsibility now, chosen one. Once we become aware, God says we're left without excuse. So we are left without excuse, meaning it's our responsibility now to pay attention to this stuff so we don't continue to be deceived. Because we're not deceived doing the deceiving anymore. We were once in darkness. Yeah, remember in Ephesians we're told, okay, we were sometimes darkness, but now, chosen ones, we are walking as the children of light. Uncovering the deception, bringing all of the lies to the light to help everyone become more aware of the devil's shenanigans. And then, of course, only those meant to receive the message and the truths are going to receive Jesus. That's it. Those who are meant to. It's unfortunate, but the narcissists who conform to this world, they're not meant to. They're not meant to. They're not meant to go with us where God is taking us. So I highly encourage y'all to check out those links in the video description below. I also have the links to PayPal, Venmo, and for Apple Cash, the ministry phone number, 704-245-4340. All right, yes, okay, we do accept service grant / donation. And so that's also listed below for quicker access. We've got PayPal, Venmo, and Apple Cash, where you can sow your seed if you feel it on the spirit. And then other ways, like the Patreon membership channel, courses at the Academy. So I highly encourage y'all to check out the website, and don't hesitate to reach out with any questions that you may have. The email is also in the video description below. And I'll get to you as soon as possible. Sending love and light to all fellow warriors. Thank you for watching, listening, and for your continued support. Till next time, we'll show some gratitude to the Heavenly Father, and you keep being you. In Jesus' name, amen.